ready?
Yes, we are. Sorry, I had I was
Oh.
on mute.
Okay.
We are ready.
Well, welcome everyone to the Rising Poets Panel People's Poetry Festival 2021 in this unique rendition of the festival. I'm Dylan Lopez. I'm going to be your host for the upcoming hour. I'm a senior at TAMUCC, the current managing editor of the Windward Review, vice president of the Islander Creative Writers, and myself, a mildly accomplished poet. I was the second recipient of the Rob Jackson Award, and I came to TAMUCC to hone my craft and become a part of this awesome, thriving community of writers and artists that we're building here in the Coastal Bend. And in engaging with this community, I've come across a variety of locals and college students in my classes who have absolutely blown me away with their talents and dedication, which have no doubt led to their early successes with the craft. So to that end, I'm so blessed to chair this panel and introduce to you some of my favorite writers from our local region who are leading the charge as the next generation of influential figures in our local and regional sphere. As a quick aside, before I bring on our first panelist, there will be a Q&A towards the end of the panel that you're welcome to participate in. Feel free to get into the chat, and there will be a survey as well, I think. So please type your comments or questions in the Zoom chat and answer the survey if you're able. But with that out of the way, the first of my four panelists that I'd like to introduce is local creative and podcast host extraordinaire, Crystal Garcia. A Corpus Christi native who graduated in 2012, Crystal strives to continue her education in being a student of life. A lover of books and all things literature, especially poetry, Crystal is the co-host of the local podcast Revolve One. Alongside her brother Rudy, she seeks to connect with her local community and listeners from around the world, whether through podcast or her writing. Crystal exercises her ability to pen heartfelt poetry, confronting with veracity the current events of our world. In everything she does, though, Crystal is at heart an empathetic creator, full of unfaltering love for all creative endeavors. Crystal, please.
Thank you so much, Dylan, and thank you everybody that's a part of the People's Poetry Festival committee. I am so excited to be a part of this panel and always happy to be able to talk with local writers and creatives. I'm going to start with my poem, Diving into Infinity. From being a child fascinated with letters becoming companions, words always painted such a vividly clear picture. Growing into adolescence only meant my hunger for words became insatiable. I could keep my gaze glued to a page, no need for eyes to strain. Going from libraries to frequenting bookstores, it was always the feel of books that perpetually enticed me. Whether it had an embellished cover or merely a title, my innate curiosity of my mind was piqued as I yearned for stories. Never will I regret the days I spent with my head between paper pages. It's been years, so I suppose I'm all grown up. Perhaps I didn't think when I was younger just how many stories were within those stories. I knew to read between the lines even then, yet I realize now stories perpetuate stories, and becoming a writer gives you the sense of being endless. And up next, thank y'all everybody, I have Imaginary Death, a foreshadowing. Does anyone else remember sitting on a colorful carpet in kindergarten, not so patiently awaiting story time? Crisscross applesauce as we listened to the selected author's imagination run wild. It was in those moments that children felt their dreams validated. To imagine wonderfully meant thinking outside of the ordinary. Elementary school does seem surreal when compared to everything else. Teachers and administration alike encourage the hopeful and ingenious imagination of all daydreaming children. That is, until it takes away from schoolwork. As you grow, schoolwork is accompanied by homework. Better pay attention in class. What school can teach us is that imagination is often used when there's nothing better to do, an absolute tragedy. Every child enjoys learning something new, even if it takes a while to fully understand. However, to scold a young soul for taking time to wade through their creative thoughts and imaginings is ludicrous. It's not always a disorder or a learning disability. Let imagination teach a child to grow in ways we cannot. We give more credit to perfect test scores than to signs of emotional intelligence and empathy. Our great country will then wonder why the brightest kids become such dull adults, whenever we've taught them it's best to rot their imagination from the inside out. Wash, rinse, repeat, a vicious cycle. This is how we fail our grandchildren and all those generations to follow. We create lesson plans to be digested. For most students, it only leaves a bitter taste they'll eventually learn to dread. Propagate education, teach the masses, change the history books, omit the truth. Learn it can benefit you to abandon childish imagination and punch that time card. This is everything you've ever wanted after all, or is this simply what you've been taught to desire? A means to an end. Now you're a successful, independent adult who reeks of quiet dissociation. Your once flourishing imagination is dead. Whew. And now I need some water. Thank y'all. Thank you, everybody. And up next, I have the Senseless Collective. Let these haunting melodies fill the air, swirl all around my head. When you know you've got so much to do, but you'd rather write a little instead. It is the year 2021, and it feels like we've all gone mad. America is terrorizing its own people. They enjoy calling themselves patriots. Every year, I want to disappear more than the last. Is this a healthy cycle to continue living in? Are we trying to better ourselves or the world? We depend on the world, although Mother Earth does not need us. We have been creating art with our eyes closed. We enjoy listening to music most when it's muted. This is insanity. This trust we give our senses only to shut ourselves off, yet our smartphones remain charged and practically alive. Is there an app for the disconnect I constantly feel? I want to understand how I'm supposed to feel. Do you understand how you feel despite living in a world where numbness is such a thrill? Thank you, everybody. Thank you. And then I have just a couple more pieces left. This one is called The Goddess of Dark and Light. These excuse me, my brother's tripping me out. These so-called quiet epiphanies I am experiencing are ringing loud in my head. It fades, yet somehow is deafening. I do not know just how much longer I can play pretend. The sky usually comforts me in times of uncertainty. It seems on occasion, even the moon grows shy. However, our satellite remains willing to take out our light as the sun is shining upon half the world. For a moment, we are all housed within our own earthly gloom. It is a moment or an eternity. Once again, the day bleeds into night as it bleeds back into time. What are we to do when the light goes out? Our natural rhythm is unnatural. As the night falls back into day, we awaken with the realization. Maybe sleep is not so much to rest peacefully as it is to travel quietly. As someone who has met many characters along my dreaming and waking journey, I recall one message from an angry, elderly woman who was pointing a vintage camera down at the ground beneath us. There is a flash. It is merely confusion, enough brightness to briefly scramble my sight. No matter my eyes readjusting, anger is unmistakable, and it sharply shaped her face. As she shakes a pointed finger directly at me, I hear her bellow loudly. There is the sky, there is the line, and there is the dark. It is already dark with the night, yet I am one with the darkness. She can clearly see what I am. All I wanted was to get back to a vehicle I could no longer find. Running in circles in a strangely desolate place. Is this somewhere in my sleeping mind or elsewhere? I had to accept that I had no idea where I was. Why would anyone ever focus on the ground if there should be more to see and other moments to capture? Yet I remember her expressing a sort of rage as I ran past her camera right as it took its shot. Perhaps some are simply trying to find common ground with ourselves. Even better to keep a memento. And that's when I understood. Her face may look different, yet her and I are the same. Capturing moments in the dark as we engender a flash of brilliance within space and time. Now when the darkness comes, I greet it instead of trying to escape. I understand now the dark only wanted to play with the captivating light. The querent is I as I was seeking myself in the darkest depths of another world. I found myself I found myself in the darkest depths of another world. I found another who shares the same journey. She resides in a realm parallel to mine, using both darkness and light as practical tools to travel through time. Did I lose them? Can everybody still hear me? Bro.
We got you here.
You're
Yes.
good.
Okay,
Yes,
I just can't see myself anymore, but that's fine. Okay, so that was the goddess of dark and light. There I am, okay. And my last piece is called The Dawning. In the beginning, we are enveloped in darkness. There is no reason to be alarmed. Our subconscious is birthed from this darkness, which nurtures us. Once we make our entrance onto Earth, we initially feel like pioneers, yet we are descendants of this soil. Now there is a different kind of warmth as the sun shines its light upon our fragile skin. Joy comes over us. There is a sort of blissful reaction that happens within. What is all this? Enraptured by such brilliant light, our eyes start to burn. We must look away. Our gaze falls back toward the dirt path. We feel grounded once again. As we ponder the journey ahead, a strange gurgling sound starts. It seems I must venture wherever this sound is coming from so as to sate my curiosity. The soft murmuring beckons to anyone who listens. I find myself in a small clearing where a stream effortlessly flows as it babbles to itself. Secrets that are too quiet to hear, yet the whispers lifted by the passing wind ripple through the air with a constant hum. Sometimes I wonder where all these incessant internal conversations go. Every second that passes feels like I have not been holding onto my own breath. Often it seems air just passes right through me. Has the wind ever pulled at you? Not just tousled your hair or gave you an unexpected chill. I mean, has it tugged at your feet and shoulders somehow, guiding you without words or commands? Only murmurs. Or is it actually mumbled incantations? Invoke the spirit that feels inflamed from the friction of too close skin. It often seems this body is all there is and no connections truly exist outside of it. Yet these senses tell us differently. There is something in the air that holds onto countless stories. You need only pause a moment to hear the earth speak its truth. If you are still long enough, your own vibrations resonate through to the ground beneath you. This energy inside your bones and electricity running through your veins is how you'll be able to shake the world. A fire visible in your eyes started first in your heart, and somehow this all seems oddly familiar now. Somewhere in another time, the pyre carried us away as the flames crackled and the others bowed their heads in respect. This ceremony signifies the journey has begun again, the fire being a catalyst to souls seeking release. In this rebirth, I am finally free. And that's that.
Well done, thank you.
Y'all.
There we go. Crystal, thank you so much. What a wonderful set from your creative, your dreamscapes towards the end.
Oh yeah.
Earlier in your set, those, social, political pieces. Your work is so diverse, and it does speak truth to the world that we live in. Thank you so much for
Thank
that.
you so much again for having me.
Absolutely. Our second panelist is local poet and legendary English graduate student, Zoe Ramos. As an interdisciplinary researcher, they use poetry as a means of exploring questions of reality and philosophy, with their work often relating to contemporary physics, religion, loneliness, and our mind's subservience to language. They value the fluidity of the genre and also make visual and handwritten poetry, which I believe they'll showcase some today. Their hope is to bring greater status to poetry as a form of research, and also to encourage all people to engage with scientific and existential questions. Their corollary approach to creative writing admits it may be that divisions such as science and art are superficial, and in order to address some of nature's biggest questions, these boundaries must be subverted. As another aside, Zoe is also the senior editor of TAMUCC's Winter Review, National Literary Journal. Now, I'd like to welcome Zoe Ramos to share their awesome work with you.
Okay, thank you. I do have a presentation. So I'm gonna, oh jeez. Oh, I see. Okay, I think here we are. Can you see PowerPoint at this
Yeah.
point. Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
yes.
Okay, sounds pretty good. So I have a presentation, if you can call it that. Okay. It's called This Is Not Poetry. And some of you can already tell that that's a Magritte reference. Anyways, this is another Magritte piece. And I thought it would be fitting to use Magritte a few times in this presentation because he has a very self-referential style. But I really just wanted to demonstrate poetry as conversation and observation. Oh boy. Okay. Oh, here's that piece, that art piece I was talking about. Underneath it says, "This is not a pipe." So, and that's, I guess, I mean, there's been, literally books written about the meaning behind that. So Magritte starts a lot of conversations just by being self-referential and what's the word, sort of meta discussion. And a lot of critics use sort of language to talk about his works of art, which is why I find them very kind of relevant to this. But also, this is the last art piece before I get started here. I only have one poem I wanted to read today. And I want to warn you that it's a found poem, and I kind of spliced it together from a lot of different things, and there's not one way to read this poem either. And I hope I don't fuck this up, but I probably will. But it's like I put some articles together along with some typed work and some handwritten stuff. And so I'm just gonna read it straight through. So I'm gonna stop talking so much and just start reading it. I hope you can see this quote here. It says, "Appearances are a glimpse of the unseen," and that's from Anaxagoras, who is a pre-Socratic philosopher. So a philosopher before philosophy was a thing. And I thought that was kind of ironic to start that way because I'm going to jump right into talking about quantum logic with this first stanza here. And you don't have to know what that means, I promise. Anyways, that would mean I was a bad poet if you had to know what that meant before I read this. But anyways, this is called God Would Know. To be this or that, this and that, just that and that. Quantum logic can read its own mind, fulfill itself, break itself in, to be X and Y at the same time, but to be human, blessed sensory, all we can ask for is to be. Oh boy. Quantum mechanics. The physics of the universe at very small scales is notorious for defying common sense. Change occurs in the quantum turf, shifts from one state to another, unpredictably, instantaneously. If events in our familiar world unfolded similarly, we would see batter become a fully baked cake without passing through intermediate steps. But to be human, all we can ask for is one thing at a time, hit or miss, momentary measures, vibrating vibration of a vibration. What we call electromagnetic energy ceases its blinding pace for us. All to say you are slower than me. There are things you'll never truly see. Human ants on a foothill following crumbs. God would know. Nearly 60 years ago, physicist Eugene Wigner captured one of the oddities of quantum mechanics in a thought experiment. He imagined a friend of his measuring a particle. Particles occupy many locations at once, but observation collapses the particle to just one spot. To be this or that, you and me, blood and bone, just yes or no bonds breaking over the smallest things, desires, what makes one human. Everything is everything and nothing but. Does your body really replace itself every 7 years? Know yourself, love yourself, be true to yourself. These old adages battered around from John Paul Sartre. We only become what we are by the radical and deep-seated refusal of that which others have made of us. To Bob Dylan, if you try to be anyone but yourself, you will fail. Katharine Hepburn, if you always do what interests you, at least one person is pleased. But how do you get to know yourself when you are constantly changing, shedding skin, renewing the lungs, the human body is in constant flux. Christened with a blessed care, the body replaces itself with a new set of cells every 7 to 10 years. Dead but highly dynamic body full of grace, blood tissue cells, living things in themselves, dying, protecting us from skin cancer, a double paradox, the stratum corneum, the outermost layer of human skin, a complex and paradoxical tissue composed of corneocytes and matrix of intercellular lipids, playing an essential role, the skin's protective barrier. The first paradox, its dual nature, non-dividing, dead cells embedded in an active, live environment whose function is to protect, maintain integrity. God would know, but I don't want to live longer in this bitter skin flake world, whatever. So exfoliate, please, till dry equals dry plus dry times dry. Your entire body is covered in skin cells, but they're not all alive. Many have served their purpose. However, they often stay on top of your skin like tiny rotting corpses. These pointless, lifeless cells can cause problems, clogged pores and calluses, hair loss, breakouts, grimy feet, and more. That's why it's important to scrub them away on every part of your body. Exfoliating, you keep your pores clear, your body smooth, and your complexion youthful and bright, your body's biggest organ. That's your skin, free of dead weight. X equals X, skin like limestone. Limestone, a sedimentary rock, calcite, the shells of marine animals. Caves are formed, weak acids dissolve enormous limestone chunks, become caverns. Limestone, the skeletons of microscopic organisms. Limestone, used to build the Pyramid of Egypt's limestone, the most important rock in construction. Limestone has a rich fossil content, knowledge of the Earth's chronology. Limestone widely used for flooring in monuments. Limestone in an ornate beauty that's so useful, so broken, seething of carbon crushed, beautiful dust, screaming, what can I be made into? And us screaming, at least you know what made you. To be a fossil, cold, alone, meandering backwards into this world, returning just for humor, just for warmth, to be an axiomatic tautology with no meaning except elegance that a frail mind can take. To be means just to be. John Mackey, CEO of Whole Foods, tells us that global warming is a natural process and not all bad. That's how it should be, natural like coal burning that we don't need anymore. We're better than that. We don't need universal health care. Just eat what you need to survive. You just need to stop eating bad stuff. Use an Apple Watch to monitor your heart rates. The real problem is no one cares about remaining alive, he says. And we'll be okay, they say, just say what needs to be said. The global environment knows all is not well. Planetary toxification, the gravity of the human predicament, problems tied to human consumption, getting to grips with the problem, the human optimism bias, thinking bad things are more likely to befall others than me. Numbers don't lie. While the problems are too numerous, having a vegetation biomass since the agricultural revolution, 1,300 documented species extinction with many more unrecorded. The combined mass of wild mammals today, less than 1/4 of the mass before humans started colonizing the planet. A bad situation only gets worse. Human population reaching 7.8 billion. High population densities make pandemics more likely, drive overcrowding, unemployment, housing shortages, deteriorating infrastructure, conflicts leading to insurrection, terrorism, and war. Humans have created an ecological Ponzi scheme. How does a Ponzi scheme work? Investors think their returns come from sales of products. They don't. There are no products. This whole setup is a con. The danger of political impotence. short-term interests in an economic system that concentrates wealth among a few individuals, right-wing populist leaders with anti-environment agendas. In many countries, environmental protest groups have been labeled terrorists. Environmentalism weaponized as a political ideology rather than viewed as a universal mode of self-preservation. Finance disinformation campaigns against climate action and forest protection protect short-term profits, claiming meaningful environmental action is too costly while ignoring the broader cost of not acting. Changing course, don't look away, failing to acknowledge the gravity of problems facing humanity is not just naive, it's dangerous. But global warming is a natural process and not all bad, so we can let ourselves rot back into ourselves. Oceans trash feel wide-eyed saying, just let us die, and that's how it should be. Natural death, natural, like coal burning, blackening, carbon crust of shitty dinner, burned pizza that we don't need anymore. We're better than that. Just eat what you need to survive. You just need to stop eating. The real problem is no one cares about remaining alive. Ask a biologist what it means to be alive, and they won't have an answer. Aristotle thought the heart was the seat of the mind. Now we know he was so wrong. Just say what needs to be said. Pigs are better than us because they eat each other to save space. Goats are better than us because they will suck insatiably on a nursing human's breast during drought, all to save their stupid life without even knowing what life is. And we have the nerve to call them lesser and disinclude them from heaven. To be beauty, whatever it is, it will be said. Freedom, God would know what it is. Let me see, because that is all I can do, and I will move my stem in that direction. Okay, that's over.
Wow.
And I apologize because I was not anticipating. I didn't practice, and there's a lot of things on the periphery that you couldn't see, but I feel like I'm way over time already. But just the last thing, I want to correct myself and make sure you know the human body does not really replace itself every 7 years. That's a myth. I said that figuratively. But anyways, that's all I've got for you. I appreciate you listening.
Wow, Zoe. Thank you so much for that. You know, your work always asks your audience to question and consider these things. And after that, I really do feel, you know, a new appreciation for my body and this planet. And, you know, on a technical level, how your handwritten notes complement the typed text and your inclusion of the research and these economic and political articles. It's absolutely stunning how you integrate that into your work. Thank you so much. Let's see. So I don't actually have very many notes on my third panelist here. I've only met Nicole a couple of times, only at the Exchange Revolve ones, open mic nights. And I only remember every time I've seen Nicole Reed just being absolutely captivated by her presence on stage, the power of her work, the rawness of it. It is so it's so important, and her voice is so important in our community, and that's why I wanted her for this panel. So Nicole Bren is a 27-year-old artist. She likes to focus on personal and controversial topics, and one of her goals as a writer is to express ownership of the authentic self, shedding the inorganic feelings associated with responses to situations and experiences. While some poems are about herself, others focus on more abstract ideas which can be interpreted by the audience in a more individualized experience. She enjoys self-expression, depth of character, and ownership of one's ideas. She believes that not only preservation and restoration of oneself and one's art are important, but they are practices that need more attention. Some of her inspirations include Marcel Marceau, Bip the Clown, Rococo in the late Baroque, and the life of Vincent van Gogh. So please, everyone, welcome Nicole Bren to our virtual stage.
Hello, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Is it working? My camera.
You're on, you're okay.
Okay, perfect. So I know we didn't have like a topic, but I sort of what I did with my poetry is for this, I am only going to read stuff that I wrote during quarantine. So I spend a lot of time by myself because I'm disabled. So I can't work, I'm alone a lot. And for me, the whole experience of quarantine wasn't something new to me, but I did see how it sort of affected other people. And I'm gonna read these in the order that I wrote them. The first one is called Relativity. I told myself this was the last time I said the last time. When I say the last time, I mean, I'm gonna do it again. And with vigilance, quiet pose, perfect and prudent display case, exposing the difference between me, myself, and my focus. Wrongs written and signed, unafraid to claim, mark, and maintain my name while digesting the first page. I lack empathy for eyes, wise, but old, cold, and dry. The truth only going as far as lies told from the mouths of dying eyes, written down, proud and impressionable. Yelling into ears as soon as they sense a listener, growing weeds in your garden. I watch you out of the cracks between rocks, a thought so dismissed. It's made itself a monument among apprehension, break free and be its own belief based on assumptions, empty of theory, hypothesis pending, reactions become autonomic and empty. Righting wrongs never felt so quaint, awake and dainty, but watch out for words spoken behind your back, split tongues, spitting gossip, compliments split with insult, injury added, third degree burn, proposition, listened to out of pity. Lacking a patent yet spread with certainty, I am a hypocrite. No room to move around accusations, unpublished opinions, lacking authenticity. But I understand that that is not my property. Privately molded, originality folded origami, held in hands that feel too strong. Envy spreads to eyes wandering too cold, press, foaming at the mouth, claiming that's mine before they figured it out. Ideas form in the shape of a mouth long before someone spit it out. And I won't speak up if I hear a thought ripped off, someone's skin displayed in art exhibits, assigned anonymous. I'll maintain my silence as long as it's the last time. I have no time to reflect on someone else's reflux. Right, wrong, upside down, disposition, methodical, entranced, enhanced, the end. A life lived on the offensive. Every passing moment encrypted. Morse code no longer feeds on secrets. I can only claim rights to my own existence. And so long ago did my ghost forget my own footprints. A chill down your spine when I walk on your grave. Escaping judgment was never on my agenda. Night walker in life, the moon holds memories of tattoos, cigarettes, and theories. The relativity of my importance lacks inconsistency. We believe the world will cave and crack open, parched lips, drinking from lakes birthed by nature, never learn the value of self. While I lie rested, hunger quenched from certainty, knowledge brings forth the monuments from people who actually listened. Headstones grow, uphold the legacy of the skeleton underneath it, a human life given a place to pause and move on after walking earth a few times. When searching for a purpose for who we are, what we mean. I mean, someone took my check to happiness, cashed it, bounced back, and I don't know what happened to it. But I know I can't bank on the check written out of pity. I found my own life worth living when the last time is really the last time. I find peace in an empty plot I've only seen in dreams, 6 feet below a marble stone where strange hands engraved my name without consent. So I was like really long. The next poem I actually wrote based off a quote from one of my friends who was going through some stuff during quarantine. And this one's called Alone. You talk about survival while also justifying the exactness of victimizing. Cold hearts bleed, coagulate with lonely. Lonely holds your hand, leads the way with a gaslight prediction, lead tongue twisted, insult slaughtered, obsolete closed market. Last night, you prayed to God. Last night, God said tomorrow. Tomorrow said yesterday. Excitement faded, eyes heavy, do nothing, nobody. She has reflections of incompleteness, blank slate, restarting, deleted. She said, why am I here? Hand holding, decorated, ill intentions, moving, motives, hiding distractions, semantics preying on the recipients of greed, painted faces, smile 24/7, white teeth, chatter, gossip, incorrectness, described with ignorance. Dark cloud ornaments, defamation, scapegoat your own soul, bringing peace never looked so violent while we pray to the same God from different religions. Blessings we pray are put into existence and created, captivated, perspectives live, liberated, scrutinized, authority, construction, control. Never felt so honest. Faithful remains anonymous. We create circles with straight lines. Repave the accuracy of dependent morale used as a weapon, unbiased opinions, vocal cords clipped. We are empty. We have no more hands to hold. What is lonely? The next piece is, it's called Souls. I actually lost my grandmother on Christmas Eve, and I sort of had like a mental breakdown. But this is sort of my first, I've written several poems for her, but this is like my first response sort of to the situation. And it's the first poem that I wrote after it happened. Maybe I won't, I don't think I'm gonna yell this time, I don't know. I'm bleak and despondent. A world low in spirit weeps when clouds are too full of their own deceit. A defeatist, a low hum, a tendency popular amongst those who don't learn how to embrace mistakes. I once hung a skeleton in my closet that did not belong to me because I knew it would damage someone else. The chance of leaving becomes next to none when someone else adopts you. The Grim Reaper is a friend. Sacrifice your firstborn while also gaslighting. You're not a virgin. Chastise before explanation. Friendships built on contracts made of oxygen evaporate. Clean slate slanted with benefit. Doubt given, half-hearted. Who is she? The last time I called myself out was yesterday. The next time I call myself out is now. Responsibility invested in decisions made while a flight risk outlines the remains of material. Forgotten caverns hold art. Memories collected through centuries, remembered as clutter, value, sentimental. What qualifications have gotten us to this decision? Greed, ill and evil, rooted in material value, souls lost, leave with memories remembered only by those who care. Sympathy is not a hangout. Empathy is not an excuse. Guilt does not pity greed, while happiness does not pity loss. The best souls don't rest. The best souls collect and reconnect. The best souls aren't dead. They're more alive than we ever will be. And this one I actually wrote 2 days after that. It's called Misfortune. And then I think I'm done. Misfortune is friends with everyone, and those who dwell in their danger are portrayed as fragile, where fragile meets negative connotations wrapped around worth. What they don't know about fragile. Fragile is original, chip off a tooth, nerve exposed, determination. If I am broken, I cannot be put back together, false. Where uniqueness lacks value is cracks filled with gold, ivory scorched with aversion. Don't look them in the eye. Dissociation never felt so grounded. Conversations rooted in chiseled jaws portray that face value as tangible. The hospice for relationship bears I'm sorry, my cat is like, sorry, I'm gonna redo that. Conversations rooted in chiseled jaws portray face value as tangible. The hospice for relationships bare bones, bloody with ineptitude to forgive. Departure past lips pressed together opens. The parish of enlightenment dwindles with false prophets. I wonder who laid me down to rest without my permission, when hands coded in greed manipulate their importance on a timeline they do not belong. Selfish, turn water to wine, we got this magician. On God, lost its meaning when used in the same sentence as a curse. People play illusionist, so when it's at the expense of someone else, my pocketbook for patience is empty. I resigned from my position of inserting my 2 cents on topics, splitting families, disposition uninspiring. I swear on my life, paired with insult, lives in the belly of that lost hunger. If everyone who held hands with misfortune, the only entitlement we have is the opposite of valuable, given without consent. Sorry about my cat.
Wow, that was badass, Nicole.
Thank you.
You know, we've only had a few open mics or closed readings since quarantine began, all virtual, and I really feel like that was the first time. That was the first time I felt like we were all together in person again. Just sitting in front of a stage, the strength, the power of your projection, the weight of your words and your work. It's absolutely beautiful, every piece. Thank you so much.
Thank you for letting me be here. It's like such an honor. I love it. Sorry,
no problem.
I've got a wild animal. I was like, he needs to stop. He was knocking stuff over. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's all fine. So my last panelist of the evening, last but certainly not least, one of my all-time favorites that I found in one of my creative writing classes, a brilliant classmate, Raven Reese. Raven is a junior at Texas A&M University Corpus Christi studying English with a creative writing minor. Gaining her love for poetry at the Young Authors Writing Camp hosted by the university, her pursuit of creative writing has yet to burn out. She now practices her craft in a college setting and was nominated for the Haas Writing Award in 2020 in recognition of recent academic writings. Raven's poetry tackles themes of grief, childhood, and the struggles of being socioeconomically disadvantaged. She practices many forms of poetic storytelling, borrowing narratives from both her own personal experiences and those of others in her life. The weird, the weary, and the wild all find themselves a part of her diverse creative portfolio. So everyone, please welcome Raven Reese.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much to everyone for having me here, especially Dylan. Like, this is an amazing opportunity that I'm finally getting to feel for myself, because I've seen, poets like Zoe in the past, and they're amazing. So yeah, no, it's totally an honor to be here amongst all of you. I'm going to read off some poetry that I wrote last semester for a poetry book that I did in Dr. Carsonson's class. This first piece is called Windows Face the Street. She wants you to watch her through the open window to her bedroom, where the Christmas lights twinkle behind her swaying silhouette, to be a dream, a forbidden image of a naked nymph left loitering on soft brown carpet between her toes, trapped in the frame of a window pane. You shouldn't be watching. You hear some reflexive voice warn, but wisdom, she would never take off her modest old cloak and dote thoughtlessly no curtains to shield her. There must be something else, some sort of awareness of the window's opaque aperture, completely exposing the belly of her room to the parade of cars whizzing down the road. Yet she sits in the pane, letting the eyes gaze in, never learning, never touching. Let this be all that you know. The glowing deity waits in the same window, every night a new devotion for strangers passing by, offering her room as the last Mecca to find God. That was that one. As you're going to see, there's not really a cohesive theme to all these poems. The book that I kind of constructed as an assignment was called Muster, and it more just kind of addressed the fact that, it's hard to muster up the ability to write poetry in such a pressure-filled time. And so this is all I can muster in the last semester, so I bring this to you. This is Kid in apartment building 6. You pulled out in front of me yesterday, kinky-haired kid from apartment building 6. While you whipped that ancient Corolla into my path, I saw you for the millionth time over. You're usually carrying an overflowing basket of laundry across the park, soundlessly listening to a song that I've never actually heard, but one that I know is there. You dance to the same music, walking to and from the laundry room, now from apartment building 6 to car door, bobbing that bubble of afro between the silence and the next beat, just trying to keep the rhythm with your head. You would think, after both of us being here for so long, you've had to have noticed that coincidence, that the only teenage people would meet at least once in these past 4 years. I wonder if it's been the same for you too. Does your dryer break like ours did? Do you hate hauling dirty laundry for someone else every day? Do you get that beaten up car by luck too? Do you blast your song and scream into the steering wheel? Does it hurt as much for you? Being here for 3 damn years watching ambulances yank out older people from these stacking tombs. Are we gonna die here? Staring up at our dusty ceilings, watching roaches burrow back into the dark of the closet. Is this all there is for us? That's that. That one's about like an actual real person that I see walking around here sometimes, so yeah. This next one is The Golden Hour. I've read this in front of other people, and so I want to give like a trigger warning that this does include like a death in it. I don't want to give away the twist yet, but yeah, if that's gonna like, if I don't want to hurt anyone. The Golden Hour. I just felt like I knew her, you know? Well, I hoped you would. I saw her face, perfectly smooth and animated, with a button of a nose and cheeks still pink. All the little cells exponentially doubling, binding as though they were rushing to see me. She exploded into existence like a star burning out, till all that remained was night. My little rib, God's handcrafted mirror that reflected some lost beauty in my face. She was truly the fairest of them all. Unfair. God's so unfair. I know that it feels just so unfair. Everything, especially when the dust settles. I'm sure she would have loved you. I wouldn't care if she did. I wouldn't. In her tiny body, she was so much bigger than me. And I was only years younger than now. Love never left the bounds of my skin. The day I knew she was actually there, floating through the hollow inside me, sappy sweet affection dripped from every pore of my being. She, this tiny cherub, treasured yet elusive, yanked my head out from her heavens. I became a vessel for my little Messiah. You really did care about her. It's obvious in the way that you described the time before the fall. You loved her, but you can't blame yourself. She was alive, and I felt her bony arms stretching, reaching out to me, and her legs kicked at my belly, stomping, running, fleeing from a fate I will never comprehend. She was alive, and the world stood so still that you could hear every pin drop into place. She was alive, and her feeble heartbeat fell right in sync with mine. Maybe it was the other way around. I can't imagine the excitement you felt knowing everything was so perfect for her to come home to you. I can imagine how the emergency room rushed around my baby and I, holding my stomach like she'd escaped between my trembling fingers. The whole room, cheaper, better to spend it all on her after. The doctor tucked in front of me, chiseling away at the tombstone, his face caked in anticipation. The final push. His expression wiped of any joy, swept with grief while the room hung quiet like they witnessed a murder. The doctor concentrated on Schrodinger's womb in front of him, quickly pressing stethoscope to chest, cold metal to cold skin. And I couldn't imagine. He didn't want me to hold her. I didn't know if I wanted to either. As the procession brought forth a bundle, I could see her arms curled against her chest. Little arms that opened for me, little legs tucked up beneath the blanket, once kicking. The silent lump felt neatly in the corner of my arm, not reacting to the shift in carriage. I saw her peaked cheeks and nubby nose. I dusted the birth from her skin. The moment hung in the air with the smell of funeral flowers. I froze with her, portrait of bliss in that moment alone, drawing out every brushstroke until all that remained was night. That one's a little intense. Do I have time for like a smaller one, or we good? Okay, this one's, I mean, mine are pretty long usually, so like this one's shorter. Playing house. When adulthood and childhood met like a car crash and tumble across the barren road that lies ahead, it's not hard to curl up and revert back to playgrounds, to puzzles with all the pieces, back to unfamiliarity with divorce and single motherhood, back to playing house, imitating mama cooing to her baby brother, scooping him up like the Cabbage Patch Kids never tired to storage with the rest of the old house. But that was never how the game was truly played. Mama never taught me the actual rules, never told me how the baby clawed its way out of her womb, never complained when petty troubles metastasized, exploded like water balloons, never warned how house could crumble like a Jenga tower, could crush the Barbies down below. She let me play mom, but I had to learn the rules that defined her strength. Women discipline one another to become strong and transform their lives. But she would never tell me the rules. I had to write them down as she went. That's it. I think that's all we have time for. So, thank you guys for having me. Like, this was a great experience, not even just like being able to read, but seeing everyone else's like amazing work. Like, you can imagine how intimidated I feel, but like, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Raven. I noticed this even in our classes together. There's this wicked groundedness to your work. It draws us into these little worlds, these Polaroids of lived moments, and you're reading your voice. It adds that extra movement, which gives us those beautiful imagery. It is such a hallmark of your work. So thank you so much for that reading. And now, addressing everyone, thank you for coming out to this panel, for staying on with us till the end. I can't express how incredible this experience was, how honored I am to present these new rising voices to you. I just want to add, as a quick aside, this was the first time being a part of an official panel or an organized event like this for most of our readers. And I just want to congratulate them and say that you all absolutely killed it. I could not have asked for better panelists or for better readings from any of you. This was perfect in every way. But to our audience, with our little remaining time together, our panelists will now be taking quick questions from the audience. Feel free to jump in the chat, and remember, we will have a quick survey to fill out at the end. Tom, I think if you'd like to link that now in the chat. But if there are any questions, we're ready for them.
There's some questions popping up in the chat.
Yes, I see. Zoe, Karen wants to know how much research goes into your found work?
Well, it's kind of, I hope it makes sense, but I'm just constantly out there just reading all the time, and I always see connections. And last night I was just like picking through like hundreds and hundreds of bookmarks, like, oh, this is fine, this will work. I hate to admit it, but I made that presentation like last night. So if that answers your question, I think it helps if you're just constantly being an observer. I think that's kind of the point, is just constantly looking for the poetry and everything. So research, I don't know. This word can be kind of bent into, research, just observation. It's all the same.
That's great. And now I'm going to open this up to all four of our panelists, answer in any particular order. Todd Reed asks, how do you find inspiration, to keep going when you run into writer's block?
Actually, I have a poem I wrote called Writer's Block. My response to having writer's block. That is a really good question because I'm not really sure what I do. I write a lot, but I also do a lot of art projects. So sometimes, I mean, I have some poems that are based on what I'm just doing at the time, but I do have some stuff where I'm just don't know what, like sometimes stuff's so large I don't know how to express it properly, and so I just kind of wait it out until I'm like, okay, I know how to properly express this feeling, especially if it's like an inorganic feeling. And when I say inorganic, I mean something like being ashamed of something. I don't think that's really a natural feeling. Being denied or having a feeling of self-doubt, I don't think those are organic feelings, but to acknowledge them, and then I use that as inspiration for, okay, well, we can tackle these inorganic things by acknowledging they exist, but fight back on it with, I know that's not a real feeling, but I know I thought that way. That makes sense.
That was good. Raven, Crystal, either of you want to tackle this one?
Yeah, sure. So how I deal with writer's block is kind of dependent on my mood while I'm dealing with it. Sometimes I feel like I have so much kind of almost contradicting itself in my head that I don't know if I'm in a good spot to write, even though I feel like I should, if that makes sense. So when I'm like that, I'll kind of hold on to it. And if I feel like I'm still conflicted or I'm still pushing, I'll often try it to at least start writing a poem, or even kind of just put some keywords down to kind of help get that feeling out of that block, but get the writing started, even if it doesn't really make sense. I try to forgive myself when I'm feeling frustrated with writer's block, because I know that it's really just that. It's just that kind of mental obstruction of you're too much in your own head to really be able to figure it all out. So I just kind of pause usually. And I'll show my shirt now. So poetry is not a luxury.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's good. So we've got another one from Katie Reese. I'm going to ask this to Raven and Zoe. As students of TAMUCC, how has being a student here, as members of the creative writing program, how has that benefited you as a writer, as, exploring your craft?
I'll start it. How do I make myself big? Okay, well, I think that just having this type of community has been very integral to not only showing me new ways to write, but also opening me up to opportunities to participate. Right now I'm in a class, and I know that you're one of the managers for Winter Review, Dylan, but yeah, I'm getting to help edit. I'm learning all these different processes that don't only, expose me to new writing, but kind of give me ideas and allow me to meet with different people and see how they're doing different things. So I really appreciate the community aspect of it, because before I ever came here, we didn't do a lot of creative writing. We had one creative writing class at my high school, and it was being threatened to be shut down. And so, yeah, this has definitely opened myself up to the world of writing, which I'm very excited about.
Absolutely. And I had the same experience in high school. We only had one creative writing course, one semester. And moving over to college and being able to workshop and share your work with so many different people and be a part of these open mics and these wider local communities, it is so important to improving and getting feedback on your work. Zoe, any closing thoughts on this?
Well, I would just say that I studied chemistry for 2 years in college, and then I kind of felt very frustrated because I didn't have any creative outlets. So I just started taking the creative writing minor, and just opening myself up to that community just made just, a world of difference. It's just really a sense of community can make you into, that writer that you feel like you can call yourself a writer, if that makes sense, which is, a humongous change.
Absolutely. And yes, we have one more question, I think, from Dr. Dale Pattison. And this again is, I think, for Raven and Zoe specifically, but I'm not sure how many of you have taken, literature courses here in the English program at TAMUCC, but how have these literature courses, if you have taken them, how have they influenced your writing? How has reading, integral works influenced your own creative writing?
I went to school at A&M Kingsville, and I was actually I have a degree, but I was going to get another degree, and my specialization is actually math and physics, but my minor is in English and communication. I've also taken French courses, and I actually took a really interesting English course over there, and it was called language. It was a language, gender, and sex class where we learned about all the hundreds of types of feminism, all of the different types of pronouns and how to use them correctly, and pinpointing specific things in specific essays and studies and stuff. But something also that I learned in that course was sort of like forgiving yourself when you're coming across research or using research in a way that's different. An example would be, my favorite book is Frankenstein. And when you're going through college, that's one of the books they want you to read. And I have read that book so many times. And I actually asked my English teacher, because I didn't want to write about, the God theory, the God complex, or the monster. And I didn't want to write about those typical concepts. So I asked my English teacher, I was like, can I compare Frankenstein's monster to Sinbad? Because there is a part of Frankenstein where they make a reference to the fourth voyage. And he said yes. So I think for me, especially in a school setting, I want to challenge myself on stuff, whether or not I know a whole lot about it. Because I know a whole lot about all the typical Frankenstein stuff. Like, I could have easily have written an essay and been like, felt confident in it. But I like to not make things harder for myself. But I feel like when you're in courses with teachers who trust you and understand you, that there is a little bit of openness when it comes to doing an assignment that has to be very specific on something and still being able to be creative about it.
Thank you, Nicole. That is such an interesting way how, of the flexibility of one of your instructors with the assignment has, influenced both your writing and was allowed you to explore, your own writing and your creative side and not be constricted to do an assignment you didn't want to do. Zoe, Raven, any thoughts about how, literature classes influence your writing?
I think that it's not even just like the work that we've read and all the, interaction with different course material. It's also affected a lot of my ways of thinking about writing and like approaching different topics and stuff. I took a class last semester with Dr. Hinojosa, who I saw in the chat earlier, and we studied Gloria Anzaldúa and her 7 stages of Napantla, and like it was such an interesting way to approach a journey in storytelling. And it made me rethink like everything that I knew about like, writing and moving from one plot narrative to another. So yeah, even just creating these frames of mind that you can think in these different lenses. Right now I'm taking a lot of women of color writing classes specifically, and seeing these different perspectives and learning how to place yourself in a different frame of mind so you can write with more diversity and more understanding for different types of people. That has been one of my best experiences with the literature program here at TAMUCC.
Absolutely. And, literature recently being opened up, in the college setting to writings from people of color and feminism, as Nicole was saying at A&M Kingsville. They introduced so many new ways of thinking about writing and expressing yourself, and seeing how other, influential figures in the field have influenced thought in their time. Zoe, any closing thoughts on this question from Dr. Pattison?
No, I would just say don't pressure yourself to learn too hard. I mean, read, enjoy it, and before you know it, your style is just developing, full force, and you don't even know what's going to affect you. I get affected by just like one line I hear, across the room from someone I don't even know. So I consider that literature in a way, but also, fine literature has its place too. But don't forget that authority is just kind of an illusion. Those writers out there that are really highly lauded are just fellow humans you can learn from, if that makes sense.
Absolutely, Zoe. And I've kind of run out of script. I'm not really sure what I'm doing anymore. I'm off the rails, but I don't see any more questions in the chat. But to save myself from the embarrassment of being off script, I think this panel has been absolutely incredible. Thank you all for coming out. Please remember to take the survey.
Can I
Oh.
just say one thing here? Sorry to interrupt.
Oh yes, of course.
So
Sorry.
we're going to have a dinner break, and we'll come back. I'll open up the Zoom at 6:45, and so 6:45 we'll open it up for the next panel of poetry and translation. And also enjoy your time off. It was a fabulous panel. Thank you very much, all of you reading. Great work. Great work.
Well done. All.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elegant, for having us.
Sure. And I'll give you, if anybody wants to talk some more, I'll give you like about 12 more minutes to talk and things if you wanted to. If not, that's okay too.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank y'all again for having us. Y'all are the best.
You.
Well,
I think
I
Dr.
have a
Robbins-
question.
I'm sorry, Zoe?
If anyone who has the time to stay, I don't know, Raven, Crystal, it seemed like you were just logging off, Nicole, but I guess you can answer this too, Dylan, is when you're writing, who do you write to, and do you use your own voice, and do you imagine an audience? Does that question make sense?
It makes sense. Whenever I write, I feel like I'm always writing, initially to myself and for myself, but I'm always writing with the larger audience in mind, which, I mean, for poetry nights, it feels like, we have those audience, and even now we have this audience, but I'm always thinking of the entire world in a collective consciousness sense as experiencing my writing in some way, if that makes any sense.
That is a very
No.
Sorry. I didn't know if you were going to respond to her.
Oh, you can go. It's okay.
Okay, sorry. I just think it's a very conflicting, that's a really good question to ask yourself, because I always feel like I'm conflicted between like writing to impress others. Like I want to show off that I have all these ideas just like bouncing around in my noggin. But, at the same time, I always feel like secretive about my poetry sometimes. Like that first poem that I read about the woman in the window, I feel like that's kind of exposing. I'm always too scared that someone's gonna read it and be like, whoa, this lady's kind of crazy. Like, so that's definitely writing for myself, but in a way that I almost don't want to show it to anyone sometimes, because it's like it puts you up to be set up for rejection. So yeah, those are the two things that like I need to deal with when writing.
Something I think that's really important is that I specifically write poetry to be read out loud. I don't write, one of the ones I read today, it's like all over the page, but that's because I know where I'm gonna do my breaks. I think something really important is to tell yourself I personally do not write for an audience. I write for myself, and I tell myself stuff while I'm writing, and that's sort of my third person talking. I don't care if people are offended by my work or if they like it or not, because I know that I do. And I think maybe that kind of mindset will make you feel less nervous about sharing with people, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm never really afraid to read or say certain things, because sometimes yes, because I get into, like, Crystal knows I write a lot of political stuff and religious stuff. That's really the only time I'm concerned about, does this audience fit my work, instead of does my work fit the audience. That's how I write.
Whew. Well, you know, as a student, and it's weird because my answer is pertaining to Joe, but you know, being in high school and in decathlon, speech and debate, and UIL, I was raised I was bred for creative writing and or competitive writing, I should say, not creative writing, competitive writing. You're always writing for the audience. You're always writing to get those judges, those sharks on your side, and I've not been able to shake that perspective yet. You know, even though I've taken so many creative writing classes, you know, I've not been able to write just specifically for myself. But I'm so jealous and envious of you all who write for yourself as a way of personal and, you know, soul expression. You know, that it makes you feel so fulfilled. But I would say, you know, sometimes when you write with an audience in mind, and you know, as Nicole was saying, some work is meant for the open mic. It's meant to be read in public, but you know, like as a student, you know, some work I look at it, and to me it's too flowery, it's too academic, and I look at it and I think, no, this would not play well in front of an open mic. It's like a bad joke in a comedian, right? It's like, oh, I can't read this in front of a crowd in New York or in Nashville. But no, I think all of your work, you know, that you shared here, from the academic side of Zoe, some of the raw creative, you know, the open mic talent of Nicole, and everything in between with Crystal and Raven, you know, it's meant to be heard. It's meant to be read out loud, and it's meant, you know, whether it's a book or it's in front of a stage, you know, a crowd of people with the lights down on you, it's perfect. And tonight, or this evening, was absolutely great. And thank you, you know, one last time. Thank you so much.
Thank you again for having us.
Yeah, you all rocked it. I mean, really, really rocked it so mightily. Woo!
Thank you, Dr. Robin.
Yes, thank you. My cat's over here now. He's wild. It's your favorite, Crystal.
Ah, there's Zazu.
Say hello.
Oh, hi, Zazu. You're crazy cat.
He's bad. He was like messing up on my stuff, and then he almost broke something. And I was like, oh my God, I need to break my thing and move him. He makes me nervous because he's wild.
He's still feral cat.
Nah, he's just was separated when he was a baby, so he doesn't have like that. He doesn't have that sense of community when it comes to like family and other cats, and so he's like very much by himself. So I guess he's like me.
Wild child.
And I'm pretty to myself a lot. Like I was saying, quarantine had no effect on me. I'm always alone at my house.
It can be hard.
I think it's a blessing to be able to feel that way for me, because like I said, I'm disabled. I don't have, you know, sort of a grounding feeling about stuff. I have to create my life, I guess, like, because I don't have a thing I'm following. I'm not like following some career path or school anymore, you know. So I took it as a really good thing, because I feel a lot of people lost, especially the last couple of years, people have really lost that feeling of just community in their own houses too. And I think that's really important.
I wholeheartedly agree, Nicole. Thank you again for joining us. Thank
you for having me. Amazing. I've got lots of stuff.
We're
And I
about
love
it. We're
to
here for
share.
it.
Yeah, I love sharing. I think it's important, and I think just I'm really into art restoration, and I think we should, while we are creating, we need to set up ourselves a platform to stay how it is, instead of, oh, we're gonna do art preservation, we're gonna restore this. Well, if you set up a platform where it's not gonna deteriorate, that's where I think is important. And I think that's kind of like in my bio, what I meant by like art preservation and stuff. Like, as an artist, you're equally as responsible as holding other artists accountable and saying, hey, your feelings matter, your thoughts matter, so let's make it matter on a grand scale, and nothing can be taken from you that way.
Yeah.
I love it. Preach, girl.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Seriously.
It's been so great chatting with you all, but I think we should probably enjoy our hour break before Dr. Rossi Lima's poetry and translation panel. So
Sounds like a good
Good.
plan.
looking forward to that, everyone. But thank you so much for this panel. Thank you so much to Dr. Carstensen, Tom, for staying on, everyone else in the chat as
Oh,
well.
You're fine. You're fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you were a fantastic host, Dylan. Really.
Amazing.
Really
Thank you.
Very
Thank you
well.
so much.
Great.
Really went well. All right.
Hope we can
everybody.
all do this again in the future.
Yeah,
Together.
Yes.
definitely.
We're here. We're here for it.
And then you get to read.
Yeah.
Oh, I will next time. I promise. It's not
I'm
just
gonna
not
hold
this
you to
time.
that.
Put your hand, okay?
Dr. Patterson's been kicking my ass in my own literature classes.
That's what she's there for, right?
Absolutely, I'm here for that. Absolutely.
All right, I'm gonna end it now.
Bye,
Hi.
everybody. I'll do
Thank you,
great.
everyone.
Later
Bye,
tonight. Okay?
Thank you.
All right, go to the open
Absolutely.
mic, boy. It's gonna be fun. All right.
Oh, sign up.
All right.
All
yes.
right, for sure.
Take it easy, everybody. I'm closing it down.